councillors today.
Just
I'd like to call this regular meeting of council to order. First item on the evening is the adoption of the agenda, where I'm going to amend the agenda with a late item, item 12A, the fall fair funding request. So may I have a mover to amend the agenda for the amendment? Councillor Butler, Councillor Tripp. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Do we have any other amendments?
Not to the agenda.
Not the agenda. Okay. So may I have a motion to adopt the amended agenda as presented? Councillor Ross, Councillor Butler. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Okay, moving on to the minutes portion. I have a motion to adopt the August 21st, 2017 special to-go in-camera meeting minutes as presented. Mover, please. Councillor Tripp. Second. Councillor Thompson. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. I have a motion to adopt the August 21st regular meeting minutes as presented. Councillor Tripp. Councillor Thompson.
I have some amendments.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Ross.
I realize it's difficult to always hear when I was calling in, and my calls were sometimes dropping out, and it wasn't always because I lost cell service. I don't know why the calls just dropped. Okay.
Just so Councillor Hammond can hear.
Sorry, Chris. Yeah, so sometimes the call just drops out, and then on occasion I get a call back, but on this occasion I didn't get a call back. But the minutes, I did put a motion forward when I was on the call that we, for option number 1, that we just grant the license to the, I'm speaking to the herbivore special hearing. So I did put forward that we, I move that we adopt option number 1, that we just grant the license and be done with it. That did not get a second. So I'd like it recorded in the minutes that Councillor Ross proposed option number 1. Further on in the meeting, I proposed option number 3 with 2 caveats. And those caveats being that they dispense to those who have prescription only, and that potentially they find a different location. That didn't, I don't think people realized that I was actually putting that forward as a motion, but when I said option number 3, I proposed option number 3 with these caveats. I was actually proposing a motion, and even though we did discuss some of what I spoke about, it didn't get seconded or treated as a motion. But I would like it recorded that I did propose option 3 with 2 caveats. So that could also be added to the minutes. The call did drop out. I was hoping that I'd get a call back, and I didn't get a call back. And I would also like to propose that in sometime in the very near future, before time is up, that we bring this back to the table so it can be properly discussed again.
Councillor Butler.
I'll second Councillor Ross's amendments. I remember, I'll second Councillor Ross's amendments. I do remember her making those 2 motions and them not being seconded.
Okay, all those in favor of the amendment? So carried. So now I have a motion. I think we already have, no, we don't have a motion yet to adopt the amended minutes as presented. Do we have one?
Yeah,
We did. Okay, so I'll just call the question then.
Yeah, on the, no.
On the amended regular minutes as presented. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. All right. Moving along to reports, questions, inquiries from members of council. The written reports of council. Recommendation is that council receive the written reports submitted for September 5th, 2017 regular meeting be received. Mover, please. Council.
There
are no reports, so then.
I think we don't need to do that.
Okay, so we'll move on that one. We'll skip that one. Okay, moving on to item 7A, verbal report from the RDKB rep, which would be myself, and there are no reports because most of the meetings were canceled, and the last meeting that was the board meeting, I wasn't present because of the personal situation. What I will say though is I was at the, which is not a report from RDKB, but I was at the ribbon cutting for the trail. And that was a very interesting event. It was very well presented. And I was also at the Ultimate Hockey ribbon cutting on Saturday. A very, very good thing for Grand Forks business again. Another business that seems to be going to do very well here. It's long overdue for minor hockey and all of the city concerns, so hopefully they do well. Councilor Tripp?
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah, is that the storefront that's over by the pizza, doing pizza
Yes,
place?
it's opposite Tool Time. They took over the former flooring store and they took up half of it right now, but they're anticipating that if business goes well, they will be taking the second half. And the comment from Adam was that one of the owners was the fact that it's going to be great because most of the teams, like from Spokane, whatever, will now be able to have their supper at Mama's Pizza, and they have also collaborated with Johnny's Motel, so instead of traveling back, they will be staying over. So again, it's another win-win for Grand Forks.
Can you just describe a little bit about what it is? I have no clue.
Hockey equipment, and lots of it. For every age category, the store is really well put together. They took it from the West Kelowna store. It's a prototype of the West Kelowna store, and very well outfitted for hockey. Like you see little shoulder pads, right up to the big boys. And
Is it on new equipment or is it?
yes, it's all brand new stuff.
And it's strictly hockey,
Yeah, strictly, looked like strictly hockey. And they had all the border Bruins in it the other day too when I was there, and it was really, really well done. So kudos to them for choosing Grand Forks, and hopefully they do well with everything.
Thank you.
Councilor Thompson?
I was looking for you playing ultimate hockey on 3rd Street.
Not a chance. All right. So there is no real report from the RDKB, but if council wishes to receive that, what I just did, then so be it. Councilor Thompson, Councilor Butler, all in favor? So carried. Moving on, recommendations from staff for decision. Volunteer Appreciation Night 2017 and Policy 204 update from the Deputy Corporate Officer. Recommendation is council provides notice to the public calling for nominations from the public for exceptional volunteer services in the City of Grand Forks in accordance with Council Policy 204, and further resolve that council replace Policy 204, Volunteer of the City, with an updated Policy 204A1. Councilor Ross, Councilor Butler. Any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. 8B, MIA appointments of city voting delegates. From our Chief Administrative Officer, the recommendations council receives the staff report and resolves to appoint, and you have to choose someone, as voting, I got blank, as a voting delegate at the 2017 MIA Annual General Meeting, and appoints blank blank and as alternates. Councilor Thompson?
I would be prepared to represent the city as voting delegate at the MIABC, and I would recommend that councilors Ross and Tripp be the alternates.
Councilor Butler?
I'm just curious, Mr. Mayor, the time of that meeting and if it conflicts with any of the schedules that we already have.
It's about 4:30 of our CAO.
Or CAO, sorry.
Your worship, we typically get the appointment from MIA usually in about the middle of September, and a lot of times it's too late to get to council, so we're putting the voting delegates ahead of this. I think they usually have it on a Wednesday at some point in time that I recall, but we'll have the appointment date as soon as we get to CM.
Councilor Butler?
Second question, what does MIA require us to vote on? Having never attended the meeting, I'm not sure what our responsibilities are for the city.
Well, you're certainly welcome to come if you'd like to attend. It's dealing with the municipal insurance and the policies and the bylaws and the board of directors. So it's, you
Quite a
know,
lot of different.
yeah, there's a few different things. And you receive the reports from the directors and the management, and you have the financial statements and the like. So I'd be more than happy to have you accompany me if you'd like to go.
Sure, if it doesn't conflict with what I've done.
Okay, so I'm going to call the question. All in favor of that
Should we
recommendation?
second?
No, I think it's second.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Councilor Ross. So, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Done. Okay. No requests arising from correspondence. Now we go to information.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Thanks. I think I'm going to have to recuse myself for information item 10A. As you know, I also had a pit meter installed, although I'd asked to install my own meter. So I still have a discrepancy with the city on that issue. And unfortunately, I haven't received a response, although I've sent a registered letter and many emails. So at this point, I believe that issue is outstanding because I haven't heard anything back. So I'll have to recuse myself.
All right. So moving on to 10A. Yeah, I'll let it. Recommendation is Scott Davis and Elizabeth Eastwood, outstanding charges from our Deputy Corporate Officer and Chief Financial Officer. The recommendation is that Council receives a memorandum and a letter from Scott Davis and Elizabeth Eastwood for the information and discussion. May I have a mover, please? Councilor Thompson, seconder. Councilor Tripp. Any discussion? Councilor Thompson, then Councilor Tripp.
Just a question, who actually owns the property?
I do, and my wife.
Sir, you cannot speak to this.
I'm asking our example.
To our Chief Financial Officer.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Mayor, the registered owner on title is Ms. Eastwood. She's the only registered owner on title as far as I know.
That's from our BC assessment records?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Councilor Tripp.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah, I have a couple of questions, but I don't know if we just want to sort of jump into that without letting Scott, who's here, speak to the issue. And so I don't know if we all need to vote. We all need a unanimous vote to
You need
allow
a
him to
unanimous
speak.
vote for allowance to speak, yes.
Could I put that, is it a motion that needs to come forward, or could I put that request forward so that Scott could speak to this? So I'd like to put a motion forward and that Scott be allowed, Scott Davis be allowed to speak to the issue of the pit meter refund.
Second.
I'll second the discussion.
Okay, so all those in favor of allowing Mr. Scott Davis?
Mr. Davis?
Davis
Yes.
speak?
I seconded it for discussion.
Yeah.
I would like to
Discuss.
discuss it.
Okay, go ahead.
Inasmuch as it appears that Mr. Scott is not on title, registered titles according to our records that we have on file, I'm not prepared to entertain anything appearing what he would have to say. If Ms. Eastwood was here and wanted to speak to the issue, that would be a different story, but I don't want to set precedent.
Okay, so then it's not unanimous, so it falls off.
I'd like to speak to that.
Councilor Ross, go ahead.
For lots of reasons, a couple, one person's on title and the other isn't. And I think it's not our business to know why, people's personal business and one member of a family is on the title and the other isn't. I don't think that's germane to the discussion. Scott, Mr. Davis lives at that address, and therefore he is a resident of that address, and I'm sure he contributes to the upkeep of that address. And I don't think that he's actually living with the person who owns that house, so I feel that it's still a lot of be honest, I'm gonna be perfectly clear here. If this was a female here who wasn't on title, I would be horrified that we didn't allow her to speak. Because often the man's name is on title and not the female's name is on title. That is old school and that's the way it used to happen. And she has every right to speak. And I believe that Mr. Davis has every right to speak as well.
Councillor Hammond, would you like to weigh in on this?
I would agree with Councillor Thompson on this because I think what Councillor Ross has just stated is speculation as well, delving into their personal life. The person on title, legal title, was Ann Eastwood, and I believe that she should be here to address that.
Councillor Tripp. Thank you, Councillor Hammond.
Well, I appreciate the concerns of these two councillors. If looking at the correspondence here, Mr. Davis's name is mentioned several times throughout the correspondence. So as he's the one who was, the correspondence was often with, he was the one who did the work in terms of digging the pit for the pit meter. I do believe that it would be appropriate for us to let Mr. Davis speak, especially as he's named in this correspondence that we're looking at.
Councillor Thompson.
Well, when I made an inquiry earlier today as who was the registered owner, if both Mr. Scott and Ms. Eastwood were on title, I was advised that it was a rental property and Mr. Davis was a renter.
What?
So,
Excuse me, sir. You're not allowed to speak.
You've got wrong information, ma'am.
Mr. Davis, I would ask you very nicely, please.
Yes, sir. No problem.
Well, I guess the simple way to do this is call the question and see. All those in favor of allowing Mr. Davis to speak? All those opposed? Councillor Hammond, you opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, so fortunately it falls off, sir. All right. Is there any more discussion? Councillor Tripp?
Okay, well then I'll just jump in with the questions that I had. There's a couple of them actually.
this matter's off the table, is it?
No.
No, it's still,
No,
it's just
the motion is for discussion,
Oh, okay.
information and discussion.
And okay, so possibly my first question would go to Mr. Reed. That would be, I'm aware that some people did receive free pit meters. And I just was wondering what criteria was used to determine who would have gotten a free pit meter and who would have had to pay, if you could elaborate on that for us.
Mr. Reed?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. There was a set program in place to have inside water meters. So if the survey was done through the contractor and it was decided that it was unable to be put inside for various reasons, whether there was standpipes or irrigation outside, some had plumbing issues that it could be put inside very cost effectively. So then they would come back to the city and they would recommend a pit meter at these addresses for the various reasons.
So if I understand you correctly, that was exactly the situation, other than if there was a refusal or a request by a customer that wanted specifically a pit meter, they would have to pay for it.
Correct. We had some residents that just didn't want inside water meter inside our house, so that would go to a different list where they had to pay the difference between the two.
Yeah. So that was deemed as a refusal, so to speak, in a manner of speaking.
And would all of those people then have received pit meters that they then were billed for?
If it was refused by the, yes.
Okay. Next question. And sorry, thank you, Mayor Conrad. Next question, and I don't know who might be able to answer this one, maybe our CFO. I'm just wondering, I believe that these cases are beginning to involve some legal expertise, and I'm just wondering what kind of funds the city has already spent on dealing with the legal aspect of this. Would it be, well, how are we spending, are we being judicious with the taxpayers' dollars? Are we spending more money on legal than we would be in collecting these, I guess, fines or whatever we want to call them?
Or CEO?
Your worship, there has been a bit of advice that we have received from legal, just in the fact that we're protecting any risk of organizations as far as, any refusals as far as infrastructure that was supposed to be put in. However, at this point, right now, of course, the property taxes were forgiven back, and now it's sitting back in the process where we had to reissue because there was a mathematical error. So right now, it's sitting there. I don't know. I think it's like past the 60 days, and so I think it's accruing interest. And so at this point in time, as far as the city goes, it's considered as an unpaid bill for the ones that have refused. And so there has been a bit of legal advice just to make sure that we're following the right path, and that's where we're at.
Councillor Thompson, you have another follow-up to that? Councillor Tripp?
Well, I
This will
guess.
be your last one.
Okay, I guess the question on that would be then just like if it were to go to the next stage, then we would be having to go to court or something. Would that, that would be seeming to incur a larger legal cost on our part?
That's speculative. So we don't know what's going to happen next.
That's fair.
Councillor Thompson?
Have we been challenged by one of the individuals that received an invoice for the pit meter installation?
I don't know how much I can speak to it, as fact as when we have legal proceedings, we pretty much have to keep the information in abeyance. It's one of those ones that it's pretty tough to talk about.
I'm not asking for, I'm just asking a yes or a no.
There has been a small piece.
Thank you.
Councillor Ross?
So this was a while ago, so I'm having a little brain gap here. So 1973 A1, I thought that referred to inside meter installation. When I look at this again, in the letter that was received from Mr. Davis and Ms. Eastwood, to list the charges for the pit meter, according to the city's bylaw in 1973 A1, that the pit meter is supplied for no charge if the customer is compliant. But I thought that was if the inside meter was installed, not the pit meter. Unless there was no option to install in the house. If there's no option to install in the house, then the pit meter was installed for free. If the option was to, according to 1973-1, if inside installation was an option and it was a refusal, then it was the resident's choice to have the pit meter, then it was done at the cost of the residents. Is that what the bylaw is referring to? Because it says that he was compliant in the installation of said meter, but he was compliant in the installation of the outside meter, but not the inside meter. So that's where that rub is. So I just want clarity on bylaw, on that particular bylaw.
Mr. Reed?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a difference that Mr. Davis has with the bylaw. He feels he's compliant with getting a meter, but it was, at no time was the meter going to go in the house. He preferred to have it outside or not at all. So.
But that bylaw is not specific to inside or outside?
Well, the bylaw is, you're correct, it was for inside, there was no cost. If it was unable to go inside, and we had to put a pit meter in to meter the service.
Right.
And
If you look at 10.6 in your bylaw, you'll see that that's not correct.
Sir?
Just just trying to help you out a little bit.
I don't, so, with all due respect, you don't.
Okay, all right.
Speak out
But
again.
I tried to help you out a little bit.
Thank you.
Because calling
Please
for
refrain
saying
from
no
speaking
problem
unless
with
you're
that.
asked, sir. So if I understand, this program has been in place and all the stipulations, and there's been all pretty much clarity of how it was gonna run. It was inside meter. If there was no possibility of an inside meter, it was gonna be a pit meter, and it was free. But if there was any form of refusal to have or request to not have an inside meter, and a pit meter was requested or had to be installed because the refusal, there was a charge, correct?
Correct, that's how that program was rolled out.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Tripp?
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah, I know when this whole thing was being rolled out and the bylaw was sort of in place and then not in place, and there were different dates happening and there were all kinds of issues around it. I feel that we should be extending goodwill to those people in the community. I mean, here they were giving a date that was before the end of December 2015, and I think we were even looking at dates going up into June of 16 on that bylaw back and forth. I would really ask council to consider dismissing these charges just as a goodwill to the people who really have suffered under this whole water meter installation and how it was rolled out and just the whole thing. So that would be my suggestion.
And just in a quick response to that, Councilor Tripp, if we were to do that, then we are putting the burden on the rest of the taxpayers for individuals that basically have either refused or requested special treatment.
Well,
That is
what about a
if
$1.3 million
Councilor Tripp,
burden?
please.
$1.3 million
Councilor
burden
Tripp.
that a lot of people in this community didn't want, that should have gone to a referendum. A lot of people did not want over an 800 signature petition.
Let me know when you're done.
I'm done.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
we're not debating the issue now about whether or not to install water meters. That was done before the council was elected. They were 75% complete, and I think that the council was fair in giving an extension of up to 2 years from the original deadline. So the way it was rolled out was everybody was going to have a pit meter or a water meter installed in their residence. If they chose not to have a pit meter installed in their residence, they had the option to have a pit meter installed at the curbside at their expense. So for those that had given the 2-year extension and were given the opportunity for a free one, but decided not to, and if it was possible to do it, I'm not sure why the rest of the taxpayers should have to pay that burden or why the city would be stuck with that.
Exactly, Councilor Hammond, thank you. It's a mute issue at this point in time. Okay, so I'm going to call the question because we're not here to discuss or debate the matter.
That is a question.
Is to
Receive for discussion.
receive for information and discussion. So, any other further discussion? All those in favor to receive for information and discussion? Anyone opposed? Councilor Tripp is opposed. Councilor Hammond, are you in favor or opposed?
I'm in favor.
Okay. Motion is carried.
We're just receiving for information.
Yes, exactly.
I don't believe we got full information, is the thing.
Are you slamming our staff?
No, I'm saying that I believe that Mr. Davis should have been allowed to speak. He's here, and he obviously wants to address this.
May I say something, Mr. Mayor, just
Absolutely
briefly?
not. You can, if you wish to stay for discussions from the public later, you can then.
Well, it doesn't sound like you're really wanting to hear what I say. I don't know that I want to waste my time waiting around for you to finish your business.
Well, some people want to hear you.
So,
Unfortunately,
if
if you
in
wish
fact
to-
the case
Mr. Davis, I'm
is
gonna have to
that
ask
you
you one more
refuse
time.
to let me speak, then I'm assuming that this
Not now.
is done as far as you're concerned.
Not now. You can
Correct.
speak at, you can
Is that
speak-
correct, sir?
So what was the question?
The question is,
No,
are
sir,
you done
sir,
with this?
sir,
Are you
we're done. Sir, we're done.
saying that you're not going to consider what I'm asking you? That's what I'm asking you.
What I'm asking you, sir, is to stop speaking out. of
I can't hear you with your mouth over here.
I'm asking you to stop speaking out of turn. You are not allowed to discuss during the course of the meeting. If you wish to have a discussion when it's from the public and the media, you can do so then, because it's based on the subject matter on the agenda. But at this point in time, sir, I would respectfully ask you to cease speaking.
To what?
To cease speaking.
All right. I'll listen for a while.
Thank you. Okay.
Councilor Butler?
Councilor Ross wanted some area.
I just said,
Air.
Okay, moving on to item 11, which is the bylaws. 11A, 2018 permissive tax exemption bylaw number 2040. From our chief financial officer, the recommendation is that council gives first three readings to bylaw number 2040, 2018 permissive tax exemption. Mover, please. Councillor Thompson. Seconder, Councillor Tripp. Any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Moving on to our late item. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Item 12A, light item, the fall fair funding request. The recommendation is that council approve the funding request from the Grand Forks and District Fall Fair Society for perimeter fencing rentals and highway advertising banner for the 2017 Fall Fair in the amount of $1,600 to be funded from the community support operational budget. Mover, please. Councillor Thompson. Councillor Butler. Any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. We now move on to questions from the public and the media. Again, may I caution everyone to please stay on the subject matter of tonight's agenda, otherwise it will not be able to speak. So now I open the floor up. Anyone wishes to speak, go ahead. There's a lady in the front.
You can go first.
Oh, I'd love to.
I'd love to stay, but brief. Pleasure.
First and foremost, I'd like to point out in your bylaw 10.6 on 1973 A1A states specifically, where water service is a single building on private property, the water meter shall be located in the building as close as possible to the entrance point of the water connection into the building, unless otherwise approved by the manager of operations. David Reed came out to my house and he approved the pit meter installation on February 7th of 2016. So I was well within our right to have our meter on the outside. In your bylaw 210, it also states, you state right there that you're supplying the water meters for free, period. So inside, outside, it doesn't matter if I had the approval from the city manager, which I did, okay? So we went with it. Now, what I'm being charged for is components that went into the installation above and beyond the water meter. But if you're going to charge me for components that went into that installation, then you have to charge everybody the excess components that were required to do the installations into the houses that you put those water meters in. And you haven't done that. Furthermore, there are people out there that did not want a water meter, they did not have irrigation, and the pit meter was installed and they have not been charged for it. There's about a dozen of them in this town. And David, you're well aware of that. So what I'm saying to you, and by the way, Christine, I'm not a renter. I pay for half of that house. We're partners. And where you get your information, I suggest that you dig a little deeper to find out what the hell you're talking about. Please, sir.
Are you on title, Mr. Davis?
I beg your pardon?
Is your name on the title?
I'm sorry?
Is your name on the title?
No, it is not on the title, but what the hell difference does that make?
Sir, I would ask you please to refrain.
I'm sorry.
Tone.
You have my
Otherwise,
apology. Okay?
If you become
All right,
disrespectful.
I've been going through this, I've been dealing with you guys for over a year and a half. I've dealt with Daniel, Dexter, and David here, and I've gotten the runaround in emails back and forth for the last 8 months, okay? I've got this different correspondence on March 27th, April 6th, April 20th from David, never got a response back, and they've kicked this can down the road for over a year. And it's as if they're trying to wear us down so that I'll pay the $860. I've had invoices for $849, $862, $1349, and $1,500. Now they've whittled it down to $862, which was the first invoice. I kind of think that perhaps there's a lot of things that are going on here that a lot of people aren't privy to and they don't know about. And to tell you the truth, I'm really exhausted from this ordeal that you have put me through. And so I'm going to ask you once more, okay, and I did come to your chambers in April, and you refused to listen to me, and you told me to go through the proper procedures. I did go through the proper procedures. Daniel Drexler wrote a letter to him that he forwarded to you, stating that I was uncompliant and that I didn't agree and that I didn't want a water meter, and that's the farthest thing from the truth. I never, ever was not compliant with this water meter situation, period. Ever. And you cannot prove that I was. That's all I have to say.
So if the installation was a possibility to be done inside, why did you end up with a pit meter?
I beg your pardon?
If the installation was permissible to have been done interior, why do you have a pit meter?
I didn't want the meter in my house. It's your property. And I don't want city property in my house.
So
You're
then-
asking me to pay for your property that's in a pit meter that was approved by your city manager.
So what you just admitted is the fact that you did refuse to have.
I did refuse it.
So then,
But I didn't refuse the water meter. And I made a deal with David, and he complied with that deal. So, no, I did not refuse the meter in any way whatsoever. What I refused was the mandate that you put down on us, forcing us to put it inside our homes. I've owned 5 houses in my lifetime. I've not ever had a pit meter inside my house. I lived in Alberta. I had 3 houses in Alberta. I'm sorry, the meters were not inside the house. They were outside the house in a pit meter, okay, at 40 degree below zero temperatures, and it was never a problem, okay? And so,
but the situation still remains that you're not unique in this.
I beg your pardon?
You are not unique in this situation. You are one of, let's say, close to 4,000 residents that have meters inside, but you are one of the ones that refused to have one inside because you felt you didn't want a meter in your house.
That's
so that is a blatant refusal,
That's
which
correct.
comes under the policy of.
if you look at your own bylaws, sir, it states right there that if your manager of operation approves it, then it's okay. And that's what I did. I played by your book, and now you're trying to charge me money.
Agreed, go ahead, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We did have a conversation at your property. I was there.
I never agreed to anything, David.
Sir, can you let Mr. Reed speak?
I know where he's going.
We walked around your property
Yep.
because we had to get to the front where the curb stop was. Because you have it fenced off.
Yeah.
So at that time, there was talk about some installation costs and maybe some relief there. So we agreed to some relief if you did some of the excavation. That's what we agreed to.
That's exactly what you said.
Which is exactly what you got built.
But I never agreed to any of that.
Yes, you did.
Do I have anything, do you have anything in writing to that effect?
I'd have to check my record, but I have.
You have nothing in writing. Because I never gave you anything in writing to that effect, period.
Yeah, you just.
And you're telling me that I agreed to pay for something? I never agreed to pay for anything. I listened to what you said. That was it.
Sir, you just stated that you agreed to do the excavation.
I did do the excavation.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you did agree to this deal?
I agreed to the installation of the meter in a pit. That's what I agreed to. Period.
The program is in place, sir.
Yes, it is. I've been trying to rectify this for over a
The
year.
components of the program are in place. It's very simple. I stated it earlier when I questioned Mr. Reed in a very 2 or 3 point question, which was, the program states you put an inside meter in your house. If you refuse to have an inside meter, a pit meter gets put in and you are charged for it. and you were credited, I see the invoice right here, you were credited a fair amount off that initial cost. You to probably be.
Well, if you look at the invoices, Mr. Mayor, you'll see that the first invoice I got was for $862. And then when I started dealing with Daniel Dexler, he gave me an invoice for whatever the other one was, okay? And then, well, a little while down the road, they gave me another invoice for $849. Now I think we're back up to $862. And furthermore, Mr. Mayor,
Exactly.
you have to understand, in your own bylaw, right here, it states in 10 that if I have the approval from this city manager right here, then I'm within your bylaw. Period.
Your
Period.
Your interpretation of the
It's
word-
not interpretation, it's in black and white, sir.
Yes, that's your interpretation. If you have the approval, and you, as was stated by Mr. Reed, you had the approval that you would do the excavation, but you were still going to be charged for the meter because you refused an inside installation. How
No,
complicated
that's
is
not the
that?
case at all. That's not what was said. That's not the
Is that
case.
approval in writing?
He did not get anything in writing. There's nothing in
There
writing.
was two of us there.
So, Mr. Scott didn't get your
Mr.
written
Davis.
approval, or Mr. Davis?
Well, he had his guys come out and put it in.
Refused to have even the survey done. To have the contractor come in and even look at that. He said that's not an option. Doesn't matter what the plumbing is, I'm not having a pit meter or a meter inside the house. I will have a pit meter. I said there's going to be a charge for that. So that was fine. We discussed the charge, what it was going to be. Daniel Drexler and myself don't bill anybody. It goes through the finance department. So the finance department sent out a bill. Later it was sent out with a slight correction. And this program ran over 2 years. So there was a lot of variables with the components and the pricing. And that's what came with the slight variance. It wasn't the wild swing that Mr. Davis is talking about. The bylaw speaks to you could be charged up to a certain amount. True, because a certain amount does take into consideration everything that's involved with putting in the pit meter. None of staff's time that we've spent with Mr. Davis has been billed towards that. It's strictly the components.
So my question is, so there's, Mr. Davis did not request in writing to have a pit meter and have him dig where the pit meter would go. So you don't have that in writing. And we never sent, or you never sent a letter, the city never sent a letter to Mr. Davis stating that further to our discussion, we will be installing a pit meter and reduced price because you're gonna dig the hole. I mean, so the only correspondence that we have then is subsequent to the invoices and Mr. Davis's objection on behalf of Ms. Eastwood to having received that bill. Am I correct in that assumption?
So with the correspondence part, through you, Mr. Mayor, we had some people that it didn't go through that chain of events. The people that did not get the survey often did have some correspondence trying to make an appointment, but others that agreed to have a pit but wanted to pay for the pit meter just got billed for the pit meter. So there wasn't really a firm paper trail through the process of people that chose to have a pit meter that at the time appeared okay to pay the cost difference.
Councilor Thompson.
Well, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that Mr. Davis didn't authorize you to do something, and the city didn't, or not you, but the city to do anything in writing. And the city never authorized Mr. Davis to do something in writing. It was all verbal. And then the correspondence began after the invoice was sent out. And that's the only correspondence, as I understand it now, that's been going along between letters and emails and the like, and that is strictly discussing the bill and the wish and request to have it reversed.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there was a discrepancy with the meters used. There was a thought that there should be a different brand that was cheaper, and you know, lots of suggestions from Mr. Davis on how he thought that the bill was unreasonable for the pit meter, I guess, and but that's what the cost of the pit meter and meters that we use, because it takes a data collector and a bunch of different things that we can't mix and match different meters. So we were set on what we had to use.
So I have one quick question, Mr. Reed, on this. We probably bring it down to very great simplicity here. The $13.97 and 14 cents is the installation cost of a pit meter. I'm looking at this invoice, or somewhere in there. Okay, so now, whether Mr. Davis was allowed to do his own excavation, whether you approve that, whether he allowed it, it's all hearsay because there's nothing documented. So realistically, if I understand this correctly, and to put a cap on this, Mr. Davis should have been charged $13.97, but he was already granted all kinds of credits on this bill. So I think on the city's behalf, I think it was more than fair, because if another individual did this, what would they be charged, $13.97 or $1,400? For a refusal?
Additional, yeah.
Yeah, so basically, by your own admission that you admitted that you refused an inside meter, for my concerns here, it's closed, it's a done deal.
Well, let me say this, Mr. Mayor. Okay, first and foremost, that $1,349 bill or invoice or whatever it is,
Right.
that was the third invoice I got. Okay, the first one was for $862, the second one was for $849, and then I got that one, and then they reduced it back down to $862. Okay, and as I said, I never refused to have a meter on my property or into the water line. I refused to let you put your property in my house. Okay, because that gives you the right to come into my house on a very short basis of time. And that's unacceptable. And I've never had to deal with that before. Furthermore, you know, it's ridiculous that you guys have had to put me through this stuff. I never agreed with David to pay anything. He said there could, and you just said this a moment ago. You said there could be an excess charge.
No, he said there will.
Okay, but the point is, and the point I'm trying to make is that if you went with that ideology, okay, then you would have to charge everybody that had a meter installed in their home, you would have to charge them every nut and washer and piece of pipe and the threading of that pipe and so forth and so on above and beyond the cost of that meter. But you haven't done that. But you've done it to me. Okay? And furthermore, like I said, there are people out there, and David, you're well aware of it, that did not have irrigation on their properties, and the only reason they didn't get it inside is because they didn't want it, and they weren't charged for it, and some of those people don't even know why. I'm not going to tell you any names at this point in time, because I don't want to invade on their privacy, okay? But this is a fact. It's a fact. And if you do the research, you'll find that to be true, okay? So, as this trip said, you know, it would be a really good thing to see the city to put this to rest. Okay? There's been so much damage done over this whole darn thing, and so much animosity and ill feelings throughout the community. And for you to continue to do this sort of behavior and push me into paying this money that I don't feel that I should have to pay, I believe that it doesn't resolve anything at all. It doesn't let the community heal in any way at all, and you just keep the salt in the wound.
That's your opinion, sir.
It is my opinion.
It is your opinion, but
Yeah.
basically you have stated by your own admission that you refused an inside.
You're not understanding, Mr. Mayor. Look at your 10.6.
No, sir.
I did not do
program
none
is
of
in
them
place, you
comply
are
with the
not,
bylaw.
I'm not gonna debate this with you, sir, but you are not
Well, that's
unique.
what
You
you're
have
doing.
close to 4,000 citizens here, and it's not gonna be put on their back.
Okay, well, let me
because
ask you
want
this.
to-
I understand what you're saying. So, okay, now we've gone to this scenario where you're telling me that you're going to force me to pay this bill. Okay? It's $862 at this point in time. It'll cost me $100 to take this to small claims court, and I will sue you for this amount of money. You, the city, for your legal fees, and for the taxpayer, you will incur $5,000 to $10,000 on legal fees to collect that lousy $862. And if you're that vindictive to go that direction, more power to you.
Thank you for your opinion, Ken. Councilor Ross?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Hammond?
I just want to point out that if we are successful in this small claim, we may be awarded charges costs.
Not likely.
So it may end up costing Mr. Davis more.
You can't scare me, Chris. You're an intimidating bully, and it doesn't work with me.
Mr. Davis, if you continue this type of dialogue...
I'm done with you.
Thank you. Good evening.
You know what?
Have yourself a rest. Good evening.
Thanks for your time. All right? And remember, when you open your mouth, you speak for the city, so stop embarrassing us.
Thank you, sir. You need your front row.
Thank you, Your Worship. Somebody's mic?
Oh, you're good to go.
Oh,
Yeah, turn it on.
Turn it
It's on the
on.
side, yeah, please.
not like that. Thank you, Your Worship. Kate Zeller from the Grand Forks Gazette. So just on the subject, treating to our chief administrative officer, on the question of the city bringing people to court over this, as a matter of public record, the city did go to court on this with another resident, and there was a settlement conference. So, but that never appeared before council, so I'm wondering what the effect is, if you can speak to it, between that case, which didn't appear before council but did go to court, and this case, which is coming before council.
To our CEO.
Your worship, when it comes to legal proceedings, it's basically going to be a lawyer-client privilege, and so it's not typical that the city would speak to regard to any kind of legal proceedings that happen.
And as far as the individual that was here this evening, Mr. Davis, that was just an intimidation, a threat possibly that he was going to court, but there's no, you had said that the city will take him to court, the city will not take him to court. So your phrasing is wrong.
Sorry, okay, perhaps my phrasing is wrong. I'm just curious as to why one appeared before council and yet the other did not.
Are you talking about someone suing the city because of the water meter, or are you talking about a conflict of interest that went to court?
Nope, I am talking about a matter that appeared in court this summer, which was sealed to me as a journalist because it was a settlement conference. And I saw the city's name on the public documents, I also saw the individual's name on the public documents, and I know for a matter of fact that she was disputing her pit meter charge. So I'm curious as to why that charge went to court and this charge appeared before council.
I don't. I think if the city was going to be taking someone to court, council would know.
Oh, and I'm not, I can't speak to whether the
And
city
so
took someone to court.
I'm not aware that
Yeah.
the city took anybody to
Every-
court.
I can't speak to who took who to
Yeah.
court. I just know that one appeared in court and one came before council, and I'm wondering why there's a difference.
Two different cases? There is no response for that. To our CEO.
I believe that the one that our lady from the Gazette is talking about, the individual actually spoke about talking about legal proceedings before coming to council,
Yeah.
and therefore the legal advice at that point in time was that we do not address that in council. As soon as there's a speaking of legal proceedings, then the conversation is over, and that is the reason why there's a difference here.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the public? The lady on the second row.
No, this is off topic, it is to do with the regional district.
Sorry?
This is off this topic, it is to do with the regional district.
Okay.
And I would really like to see our representative to the district
give a bit of a report of the goings on there. It's difficult for the public to know anything more without a small report at least. So if not now, please in the future, do that for us.
When
Because
there
you're
are
our
meetings,
contact.
ma'am, when there are meetings, I give a report.
Okay.
When there are no meetings, and they've been canceled for most of the summer,
Oh, I
and if
see.
you go on the RDKB website, you will see that the meetings have been canceled. And also, if there's subsequently nothing pertaining to the city of Grand Forks in the RDKB meeting, I will not be giving a report because that is available to go online by anyone to see. That's
For
why we
those-
quoted.
For those who can't or whatever get online, this scenario is a good place to bring up the odd issue that is there for all of us.
Absolutely, I agree,
So,
but if the venue does not have nothing to do at all with the city of Grand Forks, then I will not be giving that report, what goes on in Big White, unless it's something indirectly relevant to the city. I will not waste council time nor the gallery's time doing that. With all due respect, you have to understand that.
This question is for, were there no IHA meetings or BBC meetings over the summer as well?
No, there was one, I believe there was one IH meeting. But also on those, if there's anything, of course, those are a little more relevant because there's more general topics that discuss for the province, and I will bring those forward, of course. But when it's just strictly, and even if there's subject areas, Area D, which there has been, I will bring those forward because there are close
That's right.
collaborative neighbors. But when it pertains, for instance, to Big White or to areas of East Kootenai or whatever,
Mhm.
there's nothing going to be brought forward because it's just not relevant. I'm not going to share all that information because then we might as well just invite everybody to the regional meeting and then you can hear it firsthand. Councillor Thompson.
Just a couple of things. IH meetings, I think, deal strictly with capital expenditures and projections, and we do get information on that. And as far as the regional district, you can always contact Rolly Russell or
Yes,
Kristen
but
for.
he's our rep.
Yeah.
He's our rep.
He's the city's rep.
That's right.
Yeah,
And
so then
we're
you-
involved in the city as well, so it's city things.
If I could finish with respect, when there are issues that relate to the city and its taxpayers, the mayor does report.
And this is why there is a reference in the agenda, as you notice. Read the RDKB agendas here at rdkb.civicweb. Because there may be certain individuals, with all due respect, that are interested in regional topics, but if the gallery is members out there, that why would I waste your time?
Those meetings are open to the public too.
It's not-
All those meetings are open to the public.
Exactly. So I focus, if you must know, I focus mostly what pertains to the city of Grand Forks. Right? For instance, today I was at a meeting at BDCE at Regional, and the only subject that came up was the Frisbee golf.
What was discussed?
Nothing much, when we're going to move on. When we're moving forward, because they basically approved the funding for it. So now the ball's in our court, or the Frisbee's in our court. So,
What happened with the fall fair at the last regional meeting? Because the rep here today was saying she was waiting to hear if it was approved, and she said it got discussed at the last,
August 31st.
there was an August 31st meeting?
board meeting, yeah, I wasn't
Yeah.
present, which I stated earlier. I wasn't present because I wasn't.
Right, so did our alternate go to that meeting?
No.
So did you read the minutes from the meeting to see if it got approved? Oh, okay.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion to adjourn? Councilor Ross, Councilor Butler, all in favor? Anyone opposed? This meeting is adjourned.